Pakhi, look, I have to tell you, it's getting very cold in India. It's even colder where you are in the UK, in Birmingham. So this isn't just any welcome. This is an extra warm welcome to you on this episode of Unfiltered Conversations on our LeapScholar pages. Since it's getting so cold, I think we ought to do an icebreaker. And so, Pakhi, first question, so what prompted you to study abroad?
So it was not actually, like a one-day decision. Oh my God, I'm fed up with my work and I just want to move out. I actually started looking for universities in 2010. So when I was in my 10th standard, I was so obsessed with, I need to move out because I was looking for psychology honors and different courses. And in India, we just have like LSR and, colleges like that. And it's so difficult to get through them. So I started looking into it, but I didn't find it. I think engineering was meant for me. So I just went over there. But when I went to, the engineering college and everything, but I still found myself lacking something. And I felt, okay, I might not, get something interesting over here, because the kind of opportunities you have, especially for the creative field, if you want to move away from just being a software developer or, being in that field, it's a high paying job. I wanted to be in a high paying job, but in something that I love. And so I got a few clients over here and I used to speak to them. And I also visited the UK in 2017. So since 2017 till over here, it was not like a one night decision, like, oh, I want to go over there. It was a well thought through decision. I spoke to different people, took my time, and then made this decision to basically move to a different country to pursue my passion and also to be rewarded with the kind of money and salary that I aim for.
Brilliant. So, we spoke about why you moved abroad, and you talked about the fact that, it was a very thoughtful decision as opposed to something that you decided overnight. Now, getting a bit more specific. So why exactly the UK? Why did you choose the UK as a destination? You've got the US, Australia, Singapore, lots of other countries that are popular destinations for international students. But why the UK for you specifically?
So specifically for me, the UK was the best decision because the business courses in the US, it's quite different. They are 2-year courses and you have to, go through a lot of different procedures for that one. For me, UK was much more easier. Because I was more acquainted with the kind of, lifestyle people have over here, with the people over here. The country is amazing. The people are really warm and welcoming, and I like that. The second thing, which was most important one for me, was actually two more. There was one that was the duration of the course. So in a lot of countries, you have 2 years of, masters, MSc, MBA. I wasn't looking for an MBA. It's quite a generic course. I wanted to go for a specific MSc in marketing. And UK had a variety of options in that sector. So when you want to come, want to have a January intake or September intake, and even the cost, it was the second factor. Because when you look for, universities around the world, especially US, it's just too high of, the living cost and everything, even the course fee. Over here, my course during the time when I applied for it was £19,000, but I got a scholarship. So international students should be very well aware of the amount of scholarships we have over here. Apart from the universities, there are other scholarships because we are one of the Commonwealth countries. So they do give out a lot of scholarships as well. So scholarship was the second point where I was like, okay, this is fitting well in my budget. And even if, I just get a graduate job right after that, I will be able to, get my money back.
And you touched upon this. You touched upon this briefly in your answer. I came across a different video of yours on YouTube, I believe, and you talked about the fact that the people, the culture, the lifestyle in the UK is something that attracted you to the UK as well. Can you touch a little bit more on the people, the culture, the lifestyle that you see there?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing which people think about the British culture is, oh my God, they're just so open and they just keep drinking and enjoying their life. They do. They do keep drinking, they do keep enjoying their life. And I think the best thing about over here is everything is well structured, like there are rules and regulations. They hate when you cut a queue. I mean, it's quite easy to do that back in India, but over here, it's just not acceptable. Like people will not say you anything. So luckily, honestly, I haven't faced anything, racist or people like coming after me or being, rude to me in the past 5 years of my experience in the UK. I haven't seen it ever happening. So for me, that was one of the reasons. They were like very warm, very welcoming. They have a sarcastic humor. They just, I mean, once you're, it's Friday afternoon, they're done. They're literally done with the work. They're like, okay, now it's time to live life. And even in my work culture, I've seen people not approach me after work hours. I've seen people, and I think I wanted that. I wanted, that restriction of, okay, people, do respect that you have a personal life and they're quite professional. So I really like that. So this is my whole example, or why people, and I have literally fallen in love with this country, so I could be coming from like a very biased point of view.
Superb, superb. I mean, definitely seems like, the UK has become like a home away from home for you. Speaking of your go on.
No, yeah, I was just adding to this one. This is my home now, and for me, Delhi is my home away from home.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm guessing your parents are back in Delhi right now?
Yes, they are.
So your parents are in your home, away from your home, which has now become the UK. Speaking of your parents, was it difficult convincing your parents to allow you to study abroad? Because, as an Indian student, as an Indian, it can be hard for your parents to actually see their children going abroad, assimilating in a new culture, especially when you might be, say, a girl or a lady or a woman. So was it hard for you to convince your parents to allow you to study abroad?
It wasn't hard for me to convince them for me to like study abroad, because they actually visited UK before as well. So they were quite aware of what kind of country this is. So they actually felt quite safe, because it is a safe country for me. And of course, every country has its own problem. That's a different discussion. But they were quite convinced with the culture, the people, and how safe it is. The only place where I had to actually convince them was me leaving behind my engineering role, my whole engineering degree, and then moving completely into a different field, which is marketing. So that was my part of convincing. And how do you convince someone to actually, spend 20, 25 lakhs into something that they don't know about? Like, what would your career be right after that? Okay, they don't have any problem with investing that much of money, but if I invest, would you have like a proper career? Like, would you be settled? Like, how we listen to this. Okay, if you go to USA, you do your MSc, and because everybody goes to US and, they get their MSc done in computer science and they get a job. So for them, it was like a straightforward route where, what you should be doing if you have to study abroad. So I actually had to convince them, no, I don't want to go to the US to just do my MS. I want to go to UK to do my MSc in marketing. So that was my difficulty in explaining them on what I have to exactly do.
Then Pakhi, that begs the question, why exactly did you choose to make such a drastic pivot? Because, I was going through your background. It's a fairly interesting, fairly unique sort of background. You did your, not at the bachelor's level, at the bachelor's level, most of the people, a lot of students in India end up doing an engineering. So you did a BTech in information technology. But then after having worked for a few years, you then decided to move to marketing, which is a very different field. And you got your MSc in strategic marketing management at Aston University. And now, of course, you're working full-time. You've been working full-time for a couple of years now, I believe. So how the pivot from, information technology to marketing, and how did that come about? What prompted you to make such a drastic switch?
So again, this was like a step-by-step process. And I think I'm somebody who just goes with the flow when I react to, okay, this feels good. Let's just, go and try that, because you can't really, be against something if you haven't tried it. So that is why I went into those engineering jobs. I knew somewhere, I wanted to be in a creative field. I've been like doing a lot of different things since, I think, how many years? I don't know. I started a blog once, left it because I didn't have the time with the full-time job. Started a YouTube channel, left it again. Started again, left it again. So I always wanted a job which, where I could focus completely on being creative. So while I was in my last job back in India, I was doing a market research project for a client in the UK. So it started actually as an e-commerce project for states, but then it moved towards UK and their market research company. And at that time, I really felt inclined. So when I did my software engineering, okay, it was good. Then I moved towards being a BA. It was in terms of, I was more inclined towards the business side of it. And when I moved into the business side of it, I was more inclined towards the marketing side of business. So that is how I, got to know, okay, market research is something. And I had a friend over here who was quite like a guide to me, and he said, okay, you like these things, because I never knew what I really wanted. I wanted to do something which was creative but in business, but I had no idea. And he was like, no, you have these skills, and this is what you can use in marketing is something that you can go for. Then I did my research, and it was like, yeah, marketing is what I really wanted to do. So I just made that switch. So it was a I think it was an intuition that yes, I wanted to move something into the business, but then I wanted to go for an MBA, but marketing was creative yet business. So I actually started a society over here at Aston, the Marketing Society, and I came with the tagline was where business meets creativity, and that's what really marketing was. And I was looking for something like that. So that is how I made my switch, with thoughtful discussions and questions. Yeah.
Superb. And LeapScholar is where students or aspiring students meet gems like Pakhi. Pakhi, you spoke about the fact that you spoke about the fact that it wasn't all that hard convincing your parents to allow you to go to the UK, but something that was hard was convincing them that marketing is something that you want to do. But of course, whenever you're going abroad, be it the UK or the US or Australia, anywhere, it's a fairly significant amount of money that you have to spend, right? In the UK, it might be relatively less compared to say what it might be in the US, but it's still like a fairly substantial amount. You talked about the fact that back then, when you were in college, I think it was about 19,000 pounds per annum that you had to dish out, but you got a scholarship of 5,000 pounds, which is why, net you were paying about 14,000 pounds for your tuition there, which still is a fairly hefty amount, something that not many people might be able to afford. So in terms of financial planning, right? What went into it? What went into, from a financial standpoint, what is everything that went into making this a possibility, making this a reality for you?
Okay. So even if you have, all the money in the bank accounts and everything, and if you decide to like get into a university in August, I'm sorry, that's not possible, because UK wants, all the proofs and all the things before they give you a visa. So we had to keep a certain amount of money aside in the bank account for like 28 days because they want to see it over there. In terms of planning, of course, if are you paying, so even if it's 14,000, are you going to pay that in 2 different semesters? A lot of universities do give you that option. You can do that. And at the time of admission, like you have to, when you confirm your admission, you have to pay maybe 1,000 or 2,000 pounds, just like a token, like, yeah, I'm definitely coming there. So planning, that whole flow of cash, like, okay, so this is how much, will go right now. This is how much will go over there. This is how much has to go for my visa, because that's a huge cost as well because of the health insurance. So the visa might cost low, but the health insurance is quite a lot. Then even if, I never had to apply for a loan, so that's a different thing, but a few of my friends did. And I think that definitely requires a 5 to 6 months of planning of exactly, which is the best bank to go for, because a lot of people, when they are in rush, they just, they fell into a trap and are now, facing it quite difficult to get out of it. I have a few friends over here who do have a job, it's a well-paying job. They can pay everything back literally right now, but the interest is so high that they're finding it quite difficult. So I do believe that, I think I'm the last person you should ask this, but I think your company is the amazing one who can help students with this. So I think if you give yourself before admission, before coming to the UK, give yourself like 3 to 4 months pre-planning of your cash flow of, okay, this is the amount that has to go for my living expenses, my accommodation. If I go over there, I would need like 500-600 pounds cash in the first place before I open a bank account. What would I do? So give yourself time, plan everything out. Don't think, leave things for last minute. It won't work. That would be my advice in terms of financial.
That's very, very practical advice. And, I can tell, safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that everything that you spent on your education, right, wasn't really a cost. It was an investment, right? An investment that I think is definitely paying dividends, because you seem to be happy with your life for the most part. You're doing really well. You've got a full-time job now. Other, ventures that might be keeping you busy as well at the moment. So net, if you had to sum up your time in the UK and reflect back on the last, say, couple of years, ever since you came for college in 2019, how would you sum it up? What have been some of the highs, some of the positives, and then we can touch upon some of the lows as well, just so that we give people a more holistic picture about what life is like an international student.
So talking about the positives,
yeah.
Of course, my life has changed 360 degrees completely. Who I was 2 years ago is my friends don't recognize me anymore. So they're like, oh, you are a different person. Because
is that because you pronounce water differently now?
Maybe that's the case. Or maybe they see me drunk on a Friday afternoon. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's because when you work towards something that you really love, you work harder with more passion and you're happy. So I think that is the biggest change. I've never really, worked even hard one day. And I think my parents and my friends are so disappointed with me during engineering and every day. But I think since I've moved over here, I've always thought, okay, I have 1 year during my master's course. Okay, I have a year, how to make the most out of it. I think that is what has, really helped me to be where I am in a very short amount of time. So making most out of my time, every opportunity which was available at the university, outside the university. I chose Birmingham as a city where I want to be because it wasn't that busy, it wasn't that quiet as well. I could go out, network with people, build my network, because network is net worth. And then I think the highest points for me was my whole university experience, being starting my society over there, being as an ambassador, a global ambassador for Aston, being invited for different panel discussions, and watching an Aston Villa game from the director's box. So making, of course, the whole Aston experience was absolutely magical, and that is what I would say about it. Apart from that, actually, after hundreds and hundreds of rejections, the one company that I'm working with right now, the whole process of how they actually recruited me was actually quite surprising, because they didn't even have a sponsor's license, and they took that for me. So I think when students talk about, oh my god, it's so difficult to find a job, especially a sponsored job. Yes, it is. I understand. I've been through that. I know how hard it is. But I think when you work really, really hard and you don't have a plan B, that's when things work out for you. So I think those were like literally my high points during my years of education and then moving into a job.
So if I had to sum up, a couple of points that you said, so speaking from personal experience, since I spent 7 years in the States as well, did my bachelor's there, worked there for 2.5 years before moving back to India. When I was in college, the one thing that used to motivate me on a daily basis to make the most of the opportunities that I got at my college was that knowing that my parents were dishing out so much money every single year, I just felt that, Anubhav, you have to make the most of all the opportunities that you're getting here that you wouldn't probably get if you were, say, studying back in India. And so that sort of, lit this spark inside me. So I'm not sure, my first question to you, I'm not sure if you perhaps operated in the same way, knowing that, you were dishing out like 19,000 or whatever, 14,000 pounds every single year. You felt this added incentive to make the most of your time there. And my second point being the fact that you talked about the work culture. You talked about the work culture, you talked about you getting a solid full-time job. But at the same time, sometimes the work culture in the UK can be very different compared to what the work culture is like in, say, back in India, right? Maybe that understanding might not be there because you might just feel, okay, these aren't quite my people. And you may have spent 2 years, 3 years, 4 years there, but sometimes you feel like, okay, I don't quite feel like a sense of belonging here, because of which you might think that I'm an outsider, somewhat. So did you actually face that? If so, how did you actually overcome it? But yeah, moving to my first question about how you motivated yourself to make the most of all the opportunities that Aston University offered to you.
So my motivation wasn't the money that I spent, or I need to make my parents proud, because I think I've already done that back in engineering, clearing AIEEE. I've done that, so I don't need to do that anymore. I think the biggest motivation for me was me. I wanted to make myself happy. I wanted to make, things work for myself, because I have spent 25 years in something, in a career or in a life where in a country where I didn't feel like I belonged there in terms of work or, understanding of creative field or things like that. So for me, my motivation was, okay, this is your 1 year, do whatever you can to make the most out of, this country for yourself, because
Makes
you
sense.
want to, lead a certain life. Because if you don't give it your all, you have to go back to a life that you never wanted. So for me, that kept me going. It still keeps me going every day. And coming to the second point, which is more of a continuity from this one, even while at Asana, I was working with them as a marketing coordinator. And every idea that I presented, everything that I said, how I'm not saying that that's back in India. It could happen over here as well in the UK. It's that common, but I think it just happened way more to me back in India. That is my experience. And whenever you present your idea to a senior management, somebody who is like a decision maker in the company, they quite often see you as, oh, you are just a junior over there. I know it. I know more than you. You're a kid. Just go back and do your work.
Right.
I never felt that over here. I did a whole Instagram post on this one. I was feeling, so grateful for this opportunity because, so I worked with Aston and I never felt that. And I think that, gave me an experience and a motivation to actually see if I really belong here or it's, in my mind. It was not. So, being accepted for who you are, for your ideas, for what you can bring to the table was very important to me. And yes, of course, I am an immigrant. I'll always be an immigrant. That's never going to change. I'll always be an Indian. I don't have their accent. A lot of people, like, of course, I mean, of course, I speak to them and now I speak in a certain different way, but this is not an Indian accent. This is not a British accent. This is just my accent, a weird one now. And of course, when you speak to people, when I go to networking events and things like that, they know straight away I'm not from here.
Right.
So making yourself somebody who belongs here or, is a part of their community, if you really want to do it and if you feel it, do it, don't force it. I always felt a part of this community and that is why I do it. I speak to them in their on how, what things do they understand. If I don't know about something that it's, very important in their culture, rugby for them is way too important than I think football. For my manager, rugby is everything. He doesn't even watch football. So, how their life is. So I've always tried learning new things about them as well. Like, yeah, I don't want to be adamant about my culture. Oh, this is my culture. I don't do this. I don't do that. No, thank you. They respect my culture. If I'm on a fast, if I don't want to eat something, if I'm not drinking alcohol during Navratri, they knew it. They completely, supported me with these things. And then if I want to go to have a drink right after Navratri, they were with me. So I think you have to, work hard as well. It's not an easy space, but I think just understanding, okay, they're also just human beings and you are too. And if you love just being here, just speak to them. And I think communication has been one of the biggest things that's helped me to make myself belong here.
Superb. And look, we definitely, as I said, we definitely want to paint as holistic a picture as possible. We talked about lots of positives and definitely there are lots more positives compared to say lows or negatives. But we'll touch a bit about the lows as well that you may have experienced. Of course, you talked about the fact that when you first moved here, you felt instantly as if you belong here. But whenever someone might be moving abroad, he or she might not feel the same way. It might take people years to assimilate into the culture to actually feel, somewhat of a sense of belonging. So that could be one of the issues as well, that, you feel homesick somewhat. But in addition to that, what are some of the hardships that you faced over the last like 2.5 years, ever since you moved to the UK, and how exactly have you combated or tackled some of those hardships?
It's about the mental health and the amount of pressure the immigrants or international students are in. Because whether it's your parents' money, whether you have taken a loan, whether it was your own money, you still have a responsibility for yourself. It's an investment or it's a spend. If you're not that privileged back in India and you can just, come over here, party all the time and just go back, there's a responsibility that you have to, get a job, get something done, get the money back. The second thing is about the part-time jobs. Like when you come over here, you can't really, keep asking your parents for money. Like it's way too high, the amount of, the living cost over here. So how do you manage that? You have to get your, good grades. You have to, look for jobs at the same time. You have to work in a part-time role, which pays you, which is mostly waitressing. And I've done that. It could be, so you do one role for the money and you do one role for your career development.
Mhm.
So doing all those 5-6 things together, it just adds way too much pressure. Because when I was here, there was no PSW. So it was just recently added post-study work visa. So I had just 3 months left, and that too during COVID, where I had to find a job. So for me, I think the worst low that I felt was that I felt helpless, that I couldn't really, use my, because I never really had a lot of connections over here. So if when you're starting from scratch, you have to build your own connections. You have to take care of yourself mentally, physically. You have to, pay your own bills. How are you going to do that? So I think adding to all of these things, and then you have to look for a sponsored job, because if you don't get a sponsored job, you have to leave the country. And then all the time that you've spent in your career, in your degree, the money that you've spent, you've took the loan and everything, it just all goes to waste. And when you go back to India, they're like, oh, what happened? You didn't get a job?
I think it's very interesting, the point that you mentioned about the fact that you're working at this company that made an exception for you. They typically don't quite sponsor the visas of internationals, but they did sponsor your visa, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing being the fact that, look, they sponsored your visa, right? But then it also adds a little bit of pressure on you, as you rightly mentioned, that, look, you have to, in a way, make sure that you're doing solid work that makes them feel as if their decision to invest in you was actually justified.